Welcome back to Opening Doors, everyone. Theodore here, and I've gotta say, sometimes opening doors feels like a workout, but today we're opening them to some truly vital conversations. And speaking of vital, we have a fantastic guest with us, Katie, who's an absolute expert in the world of hospice care.
Thanks, Theodore. It's great to be here. And yes, sometimes those doors are a bit sticky, but the view on the other side is always worth it, especially when we're talking about something as important as quality hospice care.
Absolutely. And Katie, when we talk about opening doors in hospice, it really brings to mind the challenges many families face just trying to access the right care. It's not always as straightforward as it should be, is it?
It really isn't, and that's where we see the critical need for understanding the evolution of hospice care. And frankly, the role of medical directors in navigating those complexities. It's about ensuring that person-centered care isn't just a buzzword, but a reality for every patient.
Katie, when you talk about the evolution of hospice care and the role of medical directors, it makes me wonder, how much has it really changed? I mean, is it just a fancy new title, or are we talking about a whole different ballgame now?
Oh, it's absolutely a different ballgame, Theodore. We're talking about over 40 years since the Medicare hospice benefit started, and in that time, the roles of hospice medical directors and physicians have evolved dramatically. Hospice and palliative medicine even became its own subspecialty in 2006, and now it's the fifth largest medical subspecialty out there.
Fifth largest, wow. So it's not just a niche anymore, it's a whole movement.
That's incredible. So, for someone like me who just thinks doctor, what exactly does a hospice medical director do? Is it like they're the captain of the ship, steering through all the medical stuff?
Precisely. They're the medical components captain. They supervise other hospice physicians, determine patient eligibility, and are deeply involved in quality improvement programs. But it's not just clinical. They need serious leadership skills to work with everyone, from nurses to administrators, ensuring consistent quality care.
So they're basically doctors, managers, and a bit of a diplomat all rolled into one. Sounds like a lot of hats.
And I heard something about financial stewardship too. Are they also balancing the books? Katie, have you ever had to chase down a rogue invoice while also, saving lives?
Well, not quite chasing invoices, but financial stewardship is crucial. It's about ensuring cost-effective pharmaceutical provision and responding to fiscal and regulatory inquiries. The complexity of hospice care has really increased, requiring nuanced approaches to symptom management and advanced palliative interventions. It's a lot to juggle.
That sounds incredibly demanding. With all those responsibilities, I can imagine burnout is a real concern. How do medical directors even manage that?
It absolutely is. The demanding nature of both clinical and administrative duties can lead to burnout and compassion fatigue. Self-awareness and reflection are essential for recognizing those early signs and implementing support and interventions. It's a constant balancing act.
I think we can all relate to needing a little self-awareness in a demanding job, right?
Definitely. But it's not all just inside the hospice walls, is it? I imagine they also have a big role in the wider community.
Oh, absolutely. Hospice medical directors and physicians are vital in engaging with the community, educating other healthcare providers, and collaborating with medical leaders in partner organizations. They even play a role in medical and nursing education, offering clinical rotations and participating in conferences. It's about spreading awareness and knowledge.
So they're not just treating patients, they're teaching the next generation of caregivers. That's a huge impact.
It really is. And, I read a quote that said, their roles truly represent an invaluable subset of HPM. What makes them so invaluable in your opinion?
It's because they're at the intersection of so many critical areas. They're the ones who have to be adept in prognostication and understanding eligibility guidelines to advocate for patient access to care. They navigate complex ethical challenges in both clinical and business practices, always needing a systematic, unbiased approach. Their expertise ensures that patients receive the right care at the right time.
Ethical challenges in business practices. That sounds like a whole other layer of complexity. Can you give us a sense of what that might entail?
Well, it could be anything from ensuring fair and transparent billing practices to navigating relationships with pharmaceutical companies, or even making tough decisions about resource allocation. It's about maintaining the integrity of patient care while operating within a complex healthcare system. It requires a very strong moral compass.
So basically, they're the guardians of both health and ethics. No small feat.
And all of this, I imagine, is underpinned by a pretty strict regulatory framework. I've heard of conditions of participation and things like face-to-face encounters. Sounds like a lot of hoops to jump through.
It is, but it's all for good reason. The conditions of participation, or COPS, require every Medicare-certified hospice to have a medical director responsible for medical care and compliance. Key requirements include face-to-face encounters to certify and recertify hospice patients, ensuring they truly meet the criteria. It's about accountability and making sure the care is appropriate.
So, they're not just treating, they're also the chief compliance officers, making sure all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted. How do they even keep all those regulations straight?
A lot of dedicated learning, a fantastic support team, and probably a good amount of coffee, Theodore. But seriously, it's a testament to their commitment to ensuring quality and access for every patient.
Sounds like they're the unsung heroes, making sure those doors to quality hospice care stay wide open.
Unsung heroes indeed, Malik. But even heroes face their dragons, right? Katie, we've talked about all these incredible responsibilities, but what are some of the biggest hurdles when it comes to actually getting that quality hospice care to every single person who needs it?
That's the million-dollar question, Theodore. One of the biggest, honestly, is just the sheer complexity of the care itself. We're not just talking about basic comfort. It's nuanced symptom management, advanced palliative interventions like patient-controlled analgesia, even non-invasive ventilation. Providing that consistently, everywhere, is a huge lift.
So it's not just a blanket and a kind word, it's like high-tech comfort.
Exactly. And that requires highly skilled teams available 24/7. Ensuring that level of specialized care is accessible in rural areas, for example, or for underserved communities, that's a significant challenge.
I can imagine. It's one thing to have the expertise, another to deploy it everywhere. And you mentioned eligibility earlier. Is that ever a sticking point for families trying to get care?
Oh, absolutely. While the face-to-face encounters and documentation are there for good reason, sometimes the criteria for eligibility can be a real barrier. Families might feel their loved one is clearly declining, but if they don't fit the exact prognostic guidelines, it can delay or even deny access to hospice services.
So a family could be ready, but the paperwork isn't.
Precisely. And that's heartbreaking because timely access is so crucial for maximizing the benefits of hospice care.
That's a tough one. It sounds like a system designed for clarity, but sometimes it creates unintended roadblocks. What about the ethical side of things? You touched on business ethics, but are there ethical dilemmas that directly impact a patient's access to care?
Definitely. Imagine a situation where a hospice has limited resources and they have to make tough decisions about how to allocate them. Or, say, a patient's family has a very specific cultural or religious belief that might conflict with standard care protocols. Navigating those without compromising quality or access, that's a constant ethical tightrope walk.
So it's not just about what's medically right, but what's humanly right, too.
Exactly. And sometimes those two things don't perfectly align, which can create real challenges in ensuring person-centered care for everyone.
That's a powerful point. It's not just about the medical, it's about the holistic. And speaking of challenges, we talked about burnout for the medical directors. Does that ever trickle down and affect the quality or availability of care for patients?
It absolutely can. If our dedicated hospice physicians and medical directors are experiencing burnout or compassion fatigue, it impacts their ability to lead, to innovate, and even to be present for patients and families. It's a systemic issue that can indirectly but significantly affect access to consistent, high-quality care.
So we need to take care of the caregivers so they can take care of everyone else.
Precisely. It's a critical piece of the puzzle.
That makes so much sense. It's like if the foundation is cracking, the whole house is at risk. And what about awareness? Are people still just not knowing what hospice is or when to seek it out?
That's still a huge challenge, Theodore. Despite all the outreach, there's often a misunderstanding of what hospice truly is. It's not giving up. It's about living fully with dignity and comfort. Late referrals are common, meaning patients and families miss out on weeks or months of valuable support because they didn't know it was an option or they thought it was only for the very last days.
So the doors are open, but people don't always know where the door is or what's behind it.
A perfect analogy, Malik. And that's why community education and advocacy remain so vital.
It sounds like a multifaceted problem, from the highly technical medical care to the very human element of awareness and ethical decision-making. Katie, what's one thing you wish more people understood about these challenges?
I wish people understood that while the system has evolved tremendously, it's still a human system with human challenges, and that every single person involved, from the medical director to the family member, is trying their best to navigate it. The goal is always to ensure that timely, person-centered care is not just a dream, but a reality for everyone.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It's about empathy, even for the system itself. Malik, any final thoughts on these challenges?
Just that it sounds like a lot of people are working really hard to make sure those doors stay open and that more people know how to walk through them.
And speaking of working hard, Katie, it sounds like hospice medical directors are not just doctors, they're also like financial tightrope walkers. How do you even begin to balance providing the best care with, keeping the lights on?
Oh, Theodore, it's definitely a high wire act, sometimes without a net. But honestly, it's about being incredibly strategic. We're always looking for clinically appropriate and cost-effective pharmaceuticals, for example. It's not about cutting corners. It's about smart choices.
So, like the coupon queen of medicine?
Exactly, Malik, except the coupons are for, life-saving medications. But in all seriousness, it's a constant evaluation. We have to ensure patients get what they need without unnecessary waste.
I can imagine. But what about those advanced treatments? I mean, some hospices even support things like radiation therapy or transfusions, which sounds pretty expensive. How do you balance that with the cost-effective part?
That's where the real art comes in. It's about understanding the patient's goals and what truly benefits them in their specific situation. Sometimes a short course of radiation can significantly improve comfort and quality of life, even if it's not required under the Medicare benefit.
So it's not just about the rule book, it's about the human book.
Precisely. And then we have to justify those decisions to fiscal intermediaries. It's like being an accountant with a medical degree, trying to explain why a patient-controlled analgesia pump is essential for dignity.
An accountant with a medical degree. I love that. So you're basically arguing with the bean counters, but for a good cause. Have you ever had a really wild request from a fiscal intermediary that just made you scratch your head?
Oh, absolutely. I remember one time they questioned why a patient needed a specific type of wound dressing. It was clinically indicated, but the paperwork didn't quite speak their language. It took a lot of back and forth, explaining the nuances of advanced wound care, which felt a bit like teaching calculus to someone who only knows addition.
Sounds like a real lost in translation moment, but with medical jargon.
That's a standout story right there. So you're not just a doctor, you're a translator, a negotiator, and a bit of a financial wizard, Katie. I'm starting to think you could run a small country.
Well, Theodore, I'd certainly try to balance the budget with a lot more compassion. But it really highlights the ethical tightrope we walk. It's not just about the money. It's about making sure those financial decisions never compromised patient care.
Compassion over spreadsheets. I like that motto.
Speaking of ethics, we touched on it briefly before, but when you're dealing with these financial pressures, how do you ensure those ethical principles stay front and center? Are there specific dilemmas that pop up more often?
Definitely. One common one is balancing the desire to provide every possible comfort with the reality of limited resources. Or, say, a family requests a treatment that isn't covered or isn't clinically appropriate for hospice, but they're insistent. You have to navigate that with empathy, but also with integrity.
So it's like being a referee, but everyone's on your team, and you're trying to win the game for the patient.
That's a great way to put it, Malik. It requires a very strong moral compass and a systematic, unbiased approach to every decision.
And then there are the conditions of participation, the COPs. We know they're about quality, but how do they tie into this financial stewardship? Are they like the ultimate rule book for keeping everything above board financially?
They absolutely are. The COPs mandate that every Medicare-certified hospice has a medical director responsible for medical care and quality assurance. This includes ensuring that services provided are medically necessary and that billing is accurate and compliant.
So the cops are basically the financial watchdog, too.
In a way, yes, they ensure accountability. For example, those face-to-face encounters for certification aren't just about clinical assessment. They're also a safeguard against inappropriate billing and ensuring eligibility is met, which has direct financial implications.
So it's not just about ticking boxes. It's about protecting the integrity of the entire system and ultimately the patient's benefits. That's a lot of responsibility on one person's shoulders.
It truly is. It's a constant dance between clinical excellence, ethical considerations, and financial responsibility. But when it's done right, it ensures that patients and families receive the best possible care without undue financial burden.
Sounds like they're the unsung heroes of the balance sheet.
Unsung heroes of the balance sheet. I like that. Katie, thank you so much for shedding light on this incredibly complex, yet vital aspect of hospice care. It's clear there's so much more to it than meets the eye. All right, Katie, we've talked about the financial tightrope, but let's pivot to the human tightrope. These hospice medical directors, they're dealing with life and death every day. How do they keep from, just completely burning out? Is there a secret handshake or something?
Oh, if there was a secret handshake, I'd be teaching it to everyone. Honestly, Theodore, it's incredibly challenging. The demanding nature of both clinical and administrative duties, plus the emotional weight, can absolutely lead to burnout and compassion fatigue. It's a very real threat.
I can only imagine. It's not like they're just filling out forms. They're with people at their most vulnerable.
Exactly. And that's why self-awareness and reflection are so critical. Recognizing those early signs in yourself or in your team is the first step. Are you feeling overly cynical? Are you dreading going to work? Those are red flags.
So it's like a personal checkup, but for your emotional well-being. Do hospices have formal programs or support systems in place to help with this, or is it more of a sink or swim situation?
Thankfully, it's becoming much more recognized. Many organizations are implementing support and interventions, from peer support groups to access to mental health resources. It's about creating a culture where it's okay to say, I'm struggling, and get help.
That's good to hear. Because you can't pour from an empty cup, right?
Absolutely. Now, shifting gears a bit, let's talk about the ethical dilemmas that aren't necessarily about money. What about those really tough calls, like when a family's wishes conflict with what's medically appropriate, or even what the patient might have wanted before they couldn't speak for themselves?
Those are some of the hardest, Theodore. I remember a situation where a family insisted on a particular treatment that was causing the patient more distress than benefit, purely because they felt it was doing everything. It took immense patience and a systematic, unbiased approach to help them understand the patient's true best interest.
Wow. So you're not just a doctor. You're a mediator, too.
Often, it's about upholding ethical principles like beneficence, non-maleficence, and patient autonomy, even when emotions are running high. It's a constant balancing act of compassion and clinical judgment.
That sounds incredibly draining. And with the increasing complexity and competitiveness of hospice care, does that add another layer of ethical pressure?
It absolutely does. The more competitive the landscape, the more crucial it is to have a strong ethical framework. You have to ensure that business decisions never compromise patient care or access, and that you're always advocating for what's right, not just what's profitable.
So it's like ethical Hunger Games out there?
A little bit, maybe. Katie, you've seen a lot. What's one ethical dilemma that really stands out in your mind? Something that truly tested your resolve?
There was a time when a patient, who was quite lucid, expressed a clear wish to stop all medications, even those providing comfort, because they felt it was prolonging a life they no longer wanted. The family, however, was vehemently against it, believing it was giving up. Navigating that, ensuring the patient's voice was heard while supporting the grieving family was incredibly difficult. It really highlighted the importance of advanced directives and open communication.
That's a heavy one. No easy answers there.
No, not at all. Katie, you make it sound like these medical directors are part doctor, part therapist, part diplomat, and part ethical philosopher. Do they get paid extra for all those hats?
Theodore, if they did, I think we'd have a lot more people lining up for the job. But seriously, it's a calling. It takes a very special kind of person to navigate all those complexities with grace and integrity.
Sounds like they deserve a cape, or at least a really good coffee machine.
Katie, this has been an absolutely enlightening conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your incredible insights and for being, as I now know, both a medical director and a financial wizard who could probably run a small country.
It's been my absolute pleasure, Theodore and Malik, and I'll take that compliment on running a country, maybe with a strong ethical compass and a very large coffee budget.
And a cape. Don't forget the cape, Katie. You've earned it.
Indeed. Well, that's all the time we have for today on Opening Doors. A huge thank you again to Katie for joining us and to Malik for his always insightful comments. We'll see you next time.